All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the FFL Solidity Team call. My name is Marisa Maggio, and today is August 15th of 2024. So super excited to be going into August week 3. With that being said, we have a very special guest on the call. I don't just say that to say that. This person is somebody who every time I see him, I'm extremely excited, not only because of his smiling face, but also because of the wealth of knowledge that he has. He's a 4-time personal Hall of Fame producer, but above that, he's a 4-time agency, has a 4-time agency Hall of Fame. So we have Jack Yu on the call with us today. Jack, how are you doing?
Hi, Marisa. How are you? Hey, guys.
Doing great.
Yeah, very good. Thank you so much for having me today.
Hey, we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on. I know you're a busy guy. But for those of the people that maybe haven't heard your story or really haven't had the chance to hear from you, Jack, if you don't mind, opening up just a little bit about yourself, what you were doing prior to Family First Life, and kind of what got you into Family First Life.
Perfect. Thanks, Marisa. Yeah, I had graduated, went to school, studied to be an accountant. I was actually an accountant for a couple of years. Got my CPA. That was early on, and I was never a good accountant. That didn't suit me, but I knew that all along. My goal was actually early, when I was young, was to try to get into law school, and that was that whole route. But then I actually got into working for my family. After a couple of years in accounting, I moved to Asia to run a trading company. And from there, we got involved in shipbrokering. And I actually, we started this leisure cruise company that would do leisure cruises on China's Yangtze River. So I was director of sales and marketing for like over 15 years. And it was a pretty interesting role. I travel around the travel shows and meet these tour operators and talk about how to incorporate our products. So I did that for a long time. And then finally, when the company changed hands, I was out of a job. All these years of working, I was like, what do I do now? So came back to California, where I went to school, and I was looking for a job. It was the height of the recession. So, I thought my resume looked good, but I don't think everybody else did. So I was, out on the street looking for a job. I was sleeping on my friend's couch, and I got involved in life insurance. His good friend was a top producer at this other life insurance company, actually the same place where you guys came from. We were at that company. So, I got my nuts and bolts training there. Met some really nice people, but didn't make any money. So I was like, "Where's the money?" And after a year of being at that company, I decided that, I couldn't take any more torture. So I left the industry. I was like, okay, chalk it up to experience. And I went on to do some other things. And a couple years down the road, I had totally, just, put the thought out of my mind. I was like, okay, enough of that. And I had this other job, but, it really wasn't going to take me where I wanted to be. It paid okay, but it wasn't a long-term, career growth path. So I was actively looking again. And I got this call from a guy named Andrew Taylor, and his office said, we want to have an interview with you. So I was like, okay, finally, here's my chance to have an interview. So I got all dressed up to go to a meeting. And at the time, we were at another company. And I show up at this interview, and it was really just a meeting. I was like, what's going on here? And where's this guy, Andrew? He wasn't even there. Showed up late. And anyway, I put, I was able to see beyond my blinders and realize that, hey, there's some of these people here, and they were really young at the time, Andrew and a couple others, and they were actually making some pretty big moves for, pretty young guys. I mean, at the time, Andrew was like 20, and a bunch of them like 20, 21. So I was like, yeah, what's going on here? So they talked about leads, and I was like, okay, that might work. So the rest is history. I gave it a shot, and there's a lot of hard work, and had to take a bunch of leaps of faith to start buying leads, which was hard for me at first because I came from a place where they quote unquote gave you free leads. So making that change was a big transition for me. But I was like, hey, I'll do anything at this point. So I did it part time on the weekends, and I got on the phone, started dialing, and I had so many challenges with the phone. You know, I just couldn't wrap my head around it. And I was a doubting Thomas the whole way. You know, they talked about leads. You know, I saw all these other people doing well. So I thought, okay, maybe I have a shot if I could do half as well as some of these other people. And so I wasn't afraid to buy leads. So I bought a bunch of leads and started getting on the phone. But, you know, unbeknownst to myself, I wasn't actually following the phone script. I thought I was, but I really wasn't. You know, and I had to be shown the light. So I would show up, we would have like call teams and dial sessions, and I would show up and I was like Mr. Grumpy because I couldn't book any appointments. And you know, I'd be very vocal about it too. I'd be like, what's wrong with these leads? What'd you sell me? You know, you know, and actually it was funny, I was at this one dial team and I said to Andrew, I was complaining. I was like, what's wrong with these leads? You know, you gave me these leads, they don't work. And he said, why don't you give them to me? I was like, what? He said, let me try some. So I gave him the leads and he started calling. He started booking one after another, after another. I was like, oh my gosh, I guess it's not the leads. Maybe it's something to do with me. And then another time I was at one of these things and I was like, hey, they're complaining again. What's wrong with these leads? And they're like, I don't know. Why don't you try to call some? They were very understanding. And I was very hard to deal with, you know. And they just try to, you know, calm me down a little bit and say, well, why don't you start making some dials and let's, you know, course correct a little bit. I was like, course correct. I was thinking, no, I don't need any correction. It's not me, it's the leads, right? So I started calling on these leads and Andrew said to me, hey, he goes, did you realize that every time you call somebody, you say, I'm coming over? This is what we used to drive, you know, bunch of driving. Did you realize every time you call somebody, you're like, I'm coming over? I was like, no, I don't say that. I go, oh, yes, you do. Oh, no, I don't. So I to try it again. So I picked up the phone and I was like, hey, Christina, this is Jack, and I'm calling you about the life insurance, and I'm going to come over tomorrow. I was like, oh, really? I just said that. I didn't realize it. You know, I was like making up my own script.
Freestyle.
So yeah, I was just freestyling it, you know, but I thought I was following the script, but I wasn't. So you know, I think that's really important that, and that was one of the things I wanted to share is just that in the beginning, one of the key components for me was just, I had to be proven wrong. You know, I think, you know, innocent till proven guilty. I was guilty, and they had to prove me wrong. I was very stubborn, but finally I saw the light, and I was like, okay, maybe I should, you know, tone it down a little bit and take a little time to really pay attention, be a better listener, and try to focus on like what other people are doing and use that duplication strategy to get where I want to be. Because doing it the way I thought was the right way to do it wasn't actually working for me, you know?
Right. No, and
Yeah.
I love that you share that, Jack, because you know, people look at you, you know, today now, and they're like, they see Jack who's killing it and his agency's killing it, but they don't see that process that you had to go through in the beginning, so to say. I love how you said, you know, like you were like Mr. Grumpy, right? At least you can admit that you were in the past. Like now you're not. Like it's hard for me to even envision you that way, right? Which is a good thing. However, you saw so many other people doing it and you were like, hey, maybe if I just take these couple corrections and I just hear and I listen and I apply, then like maybe if I'm a better listener, I'm gonna have a better script and I'm gonna feel better about the leads and everything's just gonna go a bit better, right? So I love that you brought that up because sometimes like, you know, people will look at anyone who's been in the industry for, you know, 3, 4, 5+ years and they're like, oh, they just know everything. It's like we all were unlicensed at one point and we all had a starting point. So Jack, thanks for sharing that. And you know, kind of going off of that, from what I know about your journey, you didn't have kind of the easiest start as we just kind of discussed. But talk to us a little bit how that's changed over time and how
Yeah.
that's really helped you and your group probably be able to overcome things in a larger way, like from that understanding or that mutual understanding of this is where I was mentally, so to say, to this is where I am now mentally.
Mhm, for sure. So for me, I think I started getting traction when I started treating it like a craft. Okay, everybody will tell you what we do is simple. I mean, it's hard and it's simple. Right? It's not the hardest stuff in the world. It's not the hardest job I've had, but there are certainly certain techniques to it. So I think the first thing that I really wanted to pay attention to for myself was being word for word when it comes to some of the basics. And if you start with a strong foundation when it comes to basics like phone script and what you're saying in presentation, and you take it verbatim, which means like word for word, and you practice it, it's going to go the distance for you. So, like I said, I didn't realize I was going off script, and I actually thought I was on script. I actually had the script in front of me when I was doing it, and I thought I was doing it exactly the way it should be, but actually I wasn't. So becoming word for word on it. The phone script nowadays has been so condensed. The phone script we use is like 3 lines long, half a page long at most. So taking the time to practice it, memorize it, maybe role play it out is very important for me. And to record it. I use these little tricks of the trade, like, hey, everybody's phone's got a recorder nowadays. I record myself. And, I'll share with anybody that wants to listen. If I've got partners in the business, mentors, people that are on my team, I'll try to role play with them. People that are, starting off with at the same level, I'll get with them and I'll try to set up times when I can role play it out and I'm practicing it myself and I'm recording it. Nobody likes to listen to themselves. I mean, I think it's really awkward. Sounds really weird. It doesn't sound like me, but I record myself and I listen to it and I'm like, oh, okay. That didn't sound as clear as it should be. I was going too fast, So these things I think are really important, right? So when it comes to the phone script, there's a handful of objections. There's literally, if you go back into our, we have tons of resources. If you pick up any old phone script, there's also an objection sheet that comes with it. And there's, your top 7 objections. I'm not interested, call me back later, and I took care of it, in addition to others. So I always ask my new partners to say, hey, why don't you memorize the first 3? I'm not interested. Perfect. Is it because you think it's too expensive or you think you wouldn't qualify, right? You want to have some game plan when it comes to something simple and basic like the phone script. You can imagine that when you're starting off, you're brand new, you're calling on probably a bunch of old leads. You want to have quantity over quality, because I don't want to mess up when I'm brand new and I'm buying leads as many as I can for as inexpensive as I can, right? So when I'm calling a bunch of old leads, you can imagine the ratios are, they are what they are. You're paying $2, $3, $5 a lead, maybe $10 a lead. You're going to get a lot of people that don't pick up the phone. And then when they finally do pick up the phone, their initial gut reaction is to think you're some sort of telemarketer, right? Especially if you posture yourself as one. So you got to pay attention to that. Be affirmative, right? So when somebody picks up the phone, I'm basically like, oh, hey, Christina, this is Jack. I just assume if it's a lady, it's Christina. And if it's a guy, it's Ms. Maggio. You know what I mean? I just assume that, right? So I just jump right into it like that. And I practice the phone script verbatim, so it's always the same thing. I think that has certain benefits to it too, because if you've memorized it, the 3 lines, whatever 4 lines that it is, it becomes so natural with practice that your mind is ready to field other situations, right? So you can imagine half the people don't pick up the phone, and the other half of the people that finally do pick up the phone, immediately they're like, hey, call me back later. Hey, I'm not interested. Hey, I took care of it already. So you want to be able to meet them where they're at and keep the ball moving. It's like a volleyball match. You want to keep the ball in play, so you have to be ready with your objections. And again, that's a matter of memorizing just a couple lines. And when somebody says, hey, look, I took care of it already. Perfect. I'm sure like most people, you want to shop around and get the best protection for your family. It's a quick 5-minute phone call. I've got a 3 o'clock. So I'm ready to field objections immediately. Hey, call me back later. Perfect. I was just calling to set up a better time to talk. Right. What time do you get home? And I'm dealing with the objection and I'm ready on point on a timely basis, to handle that. So once I was able to do that and actually start booking appointments with people that said to me, I'm not interested, or somebody, I was actually able to book an appointment with someone that said, look, I'm busy right now. Then I immediately, it was like a realization. Hey, they're busy, yes, but they still picked up the phone. I asked them a couple of questions. They thought I was trying to engage right now, but I booked it anyway for later. Then I was like, okay, this is something that is, you can overcome. You can overcome an objection. because now they know that I've got their birthday and I'm not soliciting them, but rather they solicited us, right? They're busy right now, but they're not busy enough that we can set an appointment for 5 o'clock tonight. Okay. Once I had that realization, I was like, these scripts work, you know, the tone of my voice works, memorizing the script works, it's all paying off now. And those are just incremental baby steps that put me in the right direction to make me understand, okay, I should start paying closer attention to more, right? So then you talk about the presentation. And there's also a script on a presentation. And then from the phone script to actually having a presentation script, that was my next big goal, was to start breaking that down into component parts, right? So I paid close attention to the script and I started, bullet pointing what's going on. If you look at a presentation, there's really only 3 or 4 things going on, right? The first thing, just like on the phone, you want to verify something. Verify your birth date, verify your mortgage, verify your address, verify your birthday, because not just for the sake of verification, but because I want you to understand that I'm not a telemarketer, right? I have your information. You put your birth date here, right? I'm getting back to you, as if this whole process, the posture is as if to say, look, you were looking for me, not me soliciting you, right? But I want to make sure that that's clear. I also want to ask you your birth date, of course, for verification purposes. I want to know that it's not the wrong birth date, but I want to hear you say yes. Is this your
You want to
address?
get them
Yeah.
on the yes train.
Yes, I want to start them in a concurrence mode. Like, start agreeing with me. Is this your birthday? Yes. Is this your address? Yes. Did you ask for that? Yes. All right. So once we get on the good foot like that, then we can start expounding and taking it from there. So the first part, I bullet pointed, okay, so I'm asking about what your job is. I'm trying to build a rapport is what it is. So for me, I was like, okay, rapport, what does that entail? Making sure that the person likes me and trusts me as quickly as possible, right? Because you're on a presentation, you have a minute to maybe prove your worth to the person. Because if not, they just immediately write you off as some sort of salesperson. What are you trying to sell me? What do you got? I'm busy. What do you got? They try to serve it up to me. I'm like, yeah, well, I've got your birthday here. Try to put it back into place. You know what I
Right.
mean? Try to build some.
Jack, I just want to pause you because I think that this is so good. Even just, I don't care again how long you've been in the industry. It's like these small, like back to basic things are what can solve 99% of the problems in our businesses, right? Going word for word through that basic phone script. It's like that's your bread and butter. Like that's what's going to make sure that you can keep on keeping on. Having those. Yep, that's exactly why I'm calling, Jack. I just, you're probably like most families, you wanted to compare the rates, make sure you're getting the best rate for what we're doing. All right, just takes me about 10 minutes. I can put you in at 3 or 5, what time's better? When you say that, and like you said, Jack, you're like, and then I started doing it, and did it work every time? No. But did it work sometimes? Does it still work sometimes? Yes, right? So seeing that work and seeing that actually play out, I think is huge. And then I love how you said record yourself, because I feel like this is something that's really underutilized. Like no one likes to hear themselves on recording. Like I don't think anybody does, myself included. But Jack, in the beginning, I was so bad that if I didn't record myself, I would have sent it to like Santa Claus. Like, you know what I mean? And been like, can you help? But like if I didn't start recording myself, I don't know, just like you were saying, like I don't know that I would have realized what I was saying or how I was saying it and how it differentiated from what I was supposed to be doing, right? I thought I was doing it right, but I was doing it left. And I think it's important when we see that, people to recognize it, pick it up, and then, like you're saying, put it into these boxes so it doesn't feel so mumbled. And now, kind of, you're talking about presentation. It's the same thing, right? Like you're putting it into a box and you're simply making sure that as you're going through, you've checked that box. So you know that you've done your job, so to say, as you're kind of walking through with the client. So guys, it's like if you don't, and you also said, Jack, I started taking this seriously when I started treating it like a craft. And I think that that's huge. Like, again, if you're not seeing the results you want to see, start treating this not like a hobby, not like it might work. Start treating this like this is your craft, this is your career. Because if you're in this business, this is your business. We have to treat it that way. So Jack, you just opened up with so much like fire there. I couldn't like not reiterate some of it. With that was great. That was great. I
Oh,
appreciate you
of
always.
course, of course. You know, it's funny. I just brought to my memory that I've actually have my recordings from how many years ago. I still have them in my phone. So like, and it's good because if you record, I'm sure like most people, you filled out a couple of these because you want to shop around, get the best protection for your family. So that's, I have all these recorded and, it sounds weird, but you listen to it and like you can make course correction and then you can practice with somebody. And then like if you have a manager or somebody that you want to run it by, then it's easy. You could just tap it to them in a text. And then if
Right.
you have agents that need this kind of support, and they're struggling with phone objections, then you can actually record yourself doing objections and send it to them so they can refer back to it as a study tool, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Like a little, like you said, we always have that objection sheet on kind of how to overcome things.
Yeah.
You use your one liner, keep using it, keep using it. It's not going to work every time, but it is going to work sometimes, right?
Mhm,
And just rock with that repetition and that wins.
mhm.
Um, and now you were talking a little bit about essentially like, we can make this bigger than it has to be, right? Like realistically, Jack, if we break down the phone script, the tonality, and we start actually treating it like a craft day one, it's not going to take us that long. But if we start treating it like, oh, this might work, maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't, I don't know, then it's not going to work. So if you're doing that right now, guys, like it's not supposed to work. It's supposed to work when you do exactly what Jack said to do, and you're repetitive with it. But Jack, this is one thing I really did want to ask you because you have a high producing agency, right? You guys are helping, a ton of families every month, and you have been for some time. You're still producing at a high level on your own personal pen, which I think I absolutely love to see. Um, Talk to us a little bit about why that's important for you and why that's important for your team.
Yeah. I think a big change in the scenery happened when I started selling virtually. Okay. Because for over 10 years, I was just driving around. And I still love doing that. I did that for 10 years. I mean, I would drive 900 miles a week. And oh man, I could tell you stories about that. Just, it took me a couple of years to get used to that. The first 2 years, like, oh my God, my back hurts, you know. But finally you get into a rhythm and it becomes profitable. And that was how we got started. But then COVID hit and it was very prohibitive, of course, just trying to get in people's houses. You're going to make up any story you can. I'd be doing it on people's front lawns and stuff, trying to climb in their back window, anything to get in the house or anywhere near it. But then people started doing virtual sales. And I was like, yeah. I was very interested, but it was like getting people on Zoom. So I paid a very close attention to studying it. I actually practiced it, but I never did it. Never did it. I was like, I don't know about that. Somewhere in the back of my mind, after doing something the other way for 10 years, I was like, I don't know if this is going to work, really. Believe it or not. But a couple years down the road, I was like, look, I think it's about time that I actually gave it a shot. So just like anybody else, I went to the CRM and I bought a ton of really old leads, ton. I needed to get my number, I had numbers in front of me and stuff. And I got back into it, but I started doing it on the telephone. And I was, in the back of my mind, I was like, all right, I'm going to try this. It might not work. And if it doesn't work, all right, goodbye. I already had it, like, had negatively envisioned the whole thing not working, which is terrible. But fortunately for me, this is like I tell people, this is like the gift that keeps giving. It immediately started bearing fruit. It started working. I was like, "Ooh, this ain't so bad." I was like, "This is neat." I was writing a good amount straight out the gate, so it was a blessing. And then I just kept going, and then we figured out a way to incorporate it into the agency because, again, you have agents here and there in other states and all over the country, and sometimes connecting is hard, and conference calls are very pivotal, of course, but on a day-to-day basis, what we do can be rather, secluded, what I mean? So I was able to incorporate my telephone sales into a Zoom call. And then we just had this hangout where agents jump in and jump out, and we're able to just, keep doing what we do and, share that with, both new and older agents alike. And, so we're able to unmute and do sales and stuff. And then at least, when I bring on new agents, they're able to say, okay, well, Jack is here and he ain't afraid to do it. And here's how he does it. Because, I'm live and I'm literally on Zoom, all week long and making sales. And I think it's a great way for people to actually visually, see exactly what I'm doing.
Absolutely. And with that being said, we have a very similar setup, Jack, kind of like you're talking about. We refer to it as, virtual office, if you will. And same thing, we empower a lot of new agents to dial live. That's what we want, be able to help them, but also them to see us and how we get beat up, but also how we, help people get protected. Talk to us a little bit about how that's helped your new agents. And like, if you were a new agent today, is that something you'd be plugging into?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the biggest things that helped me was course correction. Right? Like I said, getting feedback. Like where did I go wrong, or what could I do to like carburet or adjust the thing? Just little tiny adjustments make a total difference, like you said, on foundational stuff like phone script. That can go a long way, and getting coaching from people is very important. For me, I had to go out of my way, to go, I would call my upline, my manager, like 15 times a day. I would make sure I got the information I needed. Sometimes I'm wondering, like, where are these agents? I really want to help them, but they're nowhere to be found. I mean, it's a two-way street. You know what I mean? And if you want to be successful, I, I'm sure, Marisa and Christina and Rami, you guys, you have an open door policy. You want to take advantage of that to have, partners that are willing to share their time and energy and experience with you. So for me, yeah, it's game on, man. If I could be on a Zoom and listen to you dial, or listen to how you close or how you do your presentation, and we could role play together even. I'm looking for opportunities like that. And I think it's made a world of difference, because in the old days, I mean, we've gone through every style of onboarding that you could imagine throughout the years, right? Right. But, in the old days, it was like, okay, go get your leads and give me a call. Let me know how it goes. You
Yeah.
know, there have been times when I've been way too hands-on, way too hands-on. Like, okay, here's my agent. It's like, I'm gonna hatch this one out. I'm like, hey, how you doing today? Hey, you on the conference call today? I just smother them, you
Right.
know. And then there are other times when I have agents and I just, I was like completely opposite, hands on like, hey, just let me know when you sell something, And I don't think either approach is too healthy, too extreme in anything is not good. But, having this platform where we can pour into each other and get course correction in real time has been irreplaceable. It's great.
Absolutely. And just like you said, like that's really what it's about is being able to get feedback, being able to be coachable and being able to be like, okay, I could have done better and I'm going to do better. Right. And I think that that's huge. And like you said, being on Zoom, we're able to do that. If you record yourself, we're able to do that. But if you don't do that, it's a two-way street.
Absolutely. So I think Marissa's cut off for a second. She's
I
coming
think
right
she
back.
got lost her internet for a second there.
Well, that's all right. The other thing I wanted to share with you was, how to build a team, right? So team building has been pretty exciting, and I think the biggest benefit I've had from having agency partners is, of course, I mean, everybody talks about, passive income, ability to, have uncapped earning potential, whether it's selling or building an agency. But I tell you, the first uh, advantages I've got from
So,
having people join me,
Nick,
I
Jack,
think
I don't
one of
mean to
the,
interrupt. Can you guys hear me?
oh yes, I can hear you. Oh,
So we didn't hear right in front of our office. I think the internet came out. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I'm
yes,
just
Yeah.
I can
right
hear
back
you.
on.
I think everything just went out in the office. I'm not there right now.
All right. Yeah,
No worries.
it did. Yeah, no, lightning just hit right in front of my window. Like, no
Oh.
joke. I'm not even just joking.
No
Yeah, I
way.
never saw a lightning bolt that big. Yeah, it was actually, but she should be on in a second. One
Yeah, I
second.
love that Boston weather. Boston. Boston. I love it. Well, the other thing I want to share with you is that the biggest takeaway I had from bringing on partners was the immediate accountability. Nothing is better than having running mates, people that bring to this opportunity, and then suddenly people are looking to you. I mean, I don't have to have all the answers, right? I could be a relatively new person to the opportunity. I could, there she is. Lightning strikes. Oh my goodness. I could totally
Yes,
see.
but hey, we're okay. We're gonna make this call happen because it's a very good one that I was actually really excited for. All
Oh,
right.
absolutely.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, it looks kind of crazy out there, but not in here, so we're good.
Marisa, right
I'm
now,
that.
Marisa, right now, he's just going over why to build an agency. Just so you know.
Okay, cool. Perfect. And keep rocking on that, Jack, because that's a good question.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing I was sharing is that having partners straight out the gate was one of the biggest advantages I could have asked for. I wasn't even looking to build a team. I was doubtful in my own abilities to sell. And I was like, I don't even know if I can do this. Well, I don't want to build an agency. But fortunately for me, I had people from the old company come over and say, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I was able to put them immediately into a way better situation. Because you remember, guys, the commission at the old company was like half of what we're offering today, you know, and immediately the leads were like way better. So people started joining me. And of course, the crux of building the team is like, hey, have a passive income plan, right? And that's important too, of course. Let's be real. But immediately I felt like there's an inner accountability. People were calling me like, how do I get contracted? Where's this conference call? Where's the training? And I was like, immediately I would be engaged, and I felt the need to want to help the people that I brought on. That's natural, right? So, and it built an accountability in me. So if Rami goes and writes 5,000, I'm going to go write 6, so there's a lot of friendly competition going on there too. And that would keep us moving faster and growing bigger, right? So I think the thing nowadays that I'm, learning from my peers across the country is that it doesn't have to be an expensive undertaking. I spent so many years, throwing tons of money in advertising, which we still do, which is great. But at the same time, warm market is the key. If you look at across the country, some of the biggest agencies are people that know how to communicate with agents about what we have to offer here at Family First Life. You can sell at a very high level. Thank goodness I've been able to figure some of that out. And then you can build an agency, I'm taking notes now. People are able to engage, warm market and friends and family. And it doesn't have to be that close friends. It can be, but it doesn't have to be that close. It could be, other agents of agents of agents. And that's something that I find really interesting. Working your downline, in a very engaging and helpful way. Like, for example, I have agents that come to me from across the country and they're interested in building a team, but they don't quite have the wherewithal to answer all the questions that everyone has on a daily basis. So we synergize together and we edify each other. And we're like, hey, look, why don't we work together? And I'll show your agency, why don't you record your phone script? Send us clips, right? We can role play after the fact, and then building their warm line down markets, So that's proven really advantageous. Yeah.
I love that because when you talk about that too, Jack, it's like it goes back to, like you said, that foundational piece of almost like I do compete with the people around me. Like I do compete with my warm market. I do compete with my day ones, and I always will. And that's something that's pushed me to the next level.
But also being able to help my downline that wants to grow an agency, they don't have to know everything, right? That's not their job. We've been here longer. So allowing us to kind of pick up some of that load and kind of take it off of them, but allowing them, hey, you can still build from day one. You don't have to know everything, right?
So
And
true.
that's huge.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to
Jack,
share. Oh yeah, please go ahead.
yeah, go for it. No, go for it.
Oh no, I just I wanted to share this other thing. You know, we were talking about, you know, when I got started and everything, and it was, you know, I had my share of challenges and obstacles. The one thing that I'm really feeling right now, and I'm really excited to share with y'all, is you know, any life insurance company, any life insurance entity, they're gonna tell you, you got uncapped earning potential, be your own, you know, own your own company, entrepreneur, all that, right? And freedom of schedule, right? And then all along, when I first started, I was like, yeah, uncapped earning potential. Where's the money? I was like, where's the money? I couldn't make any money. I was like, where is it? I don't see it. And freedom of schedule, right? So, you know, with some work, effort, and consistency, blah, blah, all that good stuff, I was finally able to get to a point where I was profiting. I finally started profiting, right? And that's when it was game on. So I took that as a sign. Now it's time to take your next leap of faith. Your first leap of faith is say, hey, I'm going to do this part-time. Am I going to do this full-time? Am I going to invest in leads? Am I going to be on the phone? Am I going to set my schedule up right? Am I going to practice this thing? That was the first step. The second step for me was once I started making money, and it wasn't a lot, but it was profiting, right? If I spent $1,000, if I could profit 2 or even 3, it's not a gross, you know, I'm not like rolling in riches, but immediately I was like, hey, I'm seeing profit. Well, as soon as that moment struck, it was time for me to double down. And that's the thing that got me real lift off from a business and a numbers perspective, right? Because it's just a numbers game when you start talking about resources, spending money on leads. So yeah, I hear guys, they're doing, you know, 50,000, 40,000, 100,000 a month. That's exciting. And that's something I always aspired to when I was new. I was like, hey, look, even if I could incrementally make this much, you know, I'm not the top, I'm far from even a consistent producer, but immediately I was like, double down. And that's what got my business lift off. And then I shared with you that whole interim period during COVID where things got weird and it was hard to, you know, but everybody wanted life insurance, right? Because they were afraid they were going to die. So the business actually started taking off and I started doing this virtual thing. And I was so surprised that after being out of the field for such a long period of time and coming back and doing it virtually, oh my gosh, knock on wood, thank God, it works. It works. So it's like the gift that keeps giving, you know. And I started selling, and it was fun, you know, talking to these people, and it was profitable. I was like, oh my gosh, this is working, right? And that's when I started understanding what they meant by, you know, uncapped earning potential. It's up to me what I want to do. So, do I have freedom of schedule? Yes. I'll give you an example. My kid just started high school. We're very excited for him. I got to drop him off at practice, and it's far away. It's like an hour away. And sometimes it doesn't even make sense for me to come back. Like I can't, because it's like it's a 3-hour practice and I can't go nowhere because I have to go back another hour and then go back another hour. So I'm literally working from my car, talking to agents on the phone. I have my appointments all booked. I've got my computer right there and I'm doing it virtually in the car. So yeah, I was at this kid practice the other day and I was excited, you know, to actually stay on the phone and help people, and had a bunch of appointments, and I was able to help a few families, like all sitting there, you know. So.
And that's awesome. And I love how you shared with us, like when I doubled down, that's when I started seeing this uncapped earning potential. That's when I started, and I feel like, Jack, that happens more often than not. When we double down, that's when we start seeing what we were looking for, right? When we take that next risk, if you will, that's when we start seeing what we were looking for that whole time. And I think that that's huge because once we start doing it once, we're typically able to do it again and again. And if we can just eternalize what's going on around us And like you said, now I'm profitable, now I'm making money, and now you're 2x in that. And I love how you talked about like basically, hey, I can do this from anywhere. I can do it from my car, I can do it at the airport if I want to, I can do it whenever, wherever I want, essentially. And you have the freedom and flexibility like we all talk about. So it goes earning potential, that freedom and flexibility to be able to now bring your son, that's really exciting too, by the way, that he's going to high school, you know, to practice. And then being able to be like, hey, I can just hang out here, do a couple of appointments, talk to some agents, help them out. And it's just as if I were in my office, right? So that's amazing. And that's awesome. I love that, Jack.
Yeah, so true. Another thing, I was having this conversation with an agent the other day, and you know, they felt so swamped. They felt so busy. Like, oh my God, I'm so busy. And it got down to like, I don't have time for my family, and they felt so busy. They felt so feeling so overburdened with the strain of the schedule, so busy. And then we actually took a look at their schedule. And they're still booking appointments like one every hour. And then I showed them my schedule. I mean, now I'm doing it on telephone. And, you know, it is what it is. Again, it's a numbers game. And just the way I'm rolling, just the way it goes, I don't know about you, but I still experience like 30, 40, 50% no-shows. Me,
Oh, yeah.
still, you know. But I overcompensate by having more appointments. So I'm booking appointments every 15 minutes on the hour, expecting I'm going to get no-show 2-3 times, you know? So. to
But
book 10
unbothered though, when you
No,
get
I'm not
a no-show,
bothered.
because you
I'm
got
not.
3 more people to call, right?
Exactly. And I posture it when I'm booking the appointment, like, hey, give me an hour in case I'm running late. I got like 20 appointments today. I know, now I'm as if to say, look, I'm so busy, like everybody wants this stuff. They're lining up for it, you know, posture, right? And I book the appointments really solidly like that. And that enables me to, again, have the freedom of schedule that I need. You know, if I gotta go drive the kid, I can't work that hour. If I gotta drive the kid back home, that's another hour, you know? If I gotta leave the office at 2 o'clock, if I have to, right? But I'm working a lot. Just sometimes when you get to that point of effectiveness, you want to be able to, you know, collapse timeframes. Maybe even, you know, book your appointments a little bit closer together.
Right, and I know that I was doing that, Jack, when I first went from in-home to telesales, because just like you, that's what I knew. I was like, I don't know if this thing's gonna work, which is not the way to go into it. And by the way, it does, guys. It's proven at this point, right? But Jack, I was booking them like an hour and a half car, and then I'm like, why am I so upset? You know, like, well, you're upset because you're booking one at 1, at 1:30, at 3, and then you have an hour and a half to be mad, and you're not using your time productively, right? Whereas you're like, hey, I'm booking 4 an hour. So if I get no-showed, it's no big deal. I get somebody else to call. Like, I'm busy. And when that changed for me, Jack, that was huge. Because just like you were saying, how you spoke with an agent, they're like, I'm so busy, I'm overwhelmed, it's a lot. Like, I felt that. But what I didn't realize was, hey, dude, you should be booking them every 15 minutes. And you might feel a lot better about the situation, right? So like you said, all those number ratios, like, that's what matters, guys. Like, that's why we say track your numbers, not because I want to track you down and track your numbers, but if you don't track your numbers, you don't know what we don't know what you did and what you didn't do, right? So that's huge. And then, Jack, one thing I really wanted to wrap up with, just because I don't know that there's an event that I've been to that you haven't been there. And I say that in the best way, because I think it's so important being around, you know, like the fire, if you will, being around people who are excited, being around new people. I love to see new people who aren't even working with me because they're excited, they're asking questions. Talk to us a little bit about why you still attend all of the events, you know, within Family First Life, and what that does, like, specifically for you, Jack.
Absolutely. I mean, again, back to my early days of, you know, being in industry, I haven't always been like so excited to like go to like conferences and stuff like that. But I tell you, I took a look back at one point. I was like, man, did you see what I accomplished just coming out of a 2-3 day session? You know, it's like people's lives are changed, you know. And of course you have to keep that momentum going. You can't just get excited for a day and then come back and don't do anything, right? But I think if you keep these fundamental building blocks in your schedule, whether it's getting on the TNL on Friday or being on the SRS call, and then certainly to, agency calls, and most importantly, get out to these big functions. That's a big game changer. I mean, the bare objective information you get, that alone is something that, you're gonna have much more retention, because when you're on a trip and you get all, you take it seriously, you get all dressed up and you go to a meeting and then you're listening to people front and center, like, and it's like a rapid fire, like they come out every 10 minutes, like bam, 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 bam. And like, yeah, I can relate to these 5 or 10, or I can relate to these people, A lot of it was that for me, it's like, hey, putting a face to the, to a person, and a name to a person. I was like, oh, I've seen that guy, but now I get to actually sit and hear their story. I might run into them at a thing afterwards. I can ask them a couple questions, and they're real people. They're real people. It's different than watching a video. Absolutely.
100%. And that's huge for me till this day. Just being able to go up to people like you and be like, hey, what are you doing for this right now? Or being able to see, like I said, that new agent, or just being able to meet guys, a lot of you guys on the call, like that's exciting. It's important. And I just know getting around the fire, you win. And Jack, I appreciate you so much being on, because you really stuck to the basic fundamentals. And oftentimes, for the best, by the way, Jack, when I have the opportunity to be in a room that you're presenting in front of, you typically bring it back to the basics. And I think that that's really important, because we can overcomplicate this business in like 30 seconds. But we could also undercomplicate it by being like, leads, script, follow the script, repeat the script, learn it, get your tonality down, and repeat, right? Like get your objections down and repeat. And it's essentially always going back to those fundamental basic things that got us going, that are going to keep us going, so to say, even through those tougher times, right? So thanks for always bringing it back to like, hey guys, like it's not that deep, really, is what I heard on this call. Like we can make it bigger than it is. We can make it a monster, or we can minimize it, and we can just be like, we're not scaring you. We're going to take it day by day. And I'm going to treat this like my craft, to your point at the beginning. And I'm going to learn more and more each day to add more and more value to my clients, to my team, whatever it might be. So, Jack, I appreciate you so much every day, but thank you so much for being on with us today and taking the time, and also dealing with my little electrical brain issue that's going on out here.
It looks like a lot of rain.
It's coming down, but hey, it will stop. All right, I
Thank you,
appreciate
Louise.
you so much, Jack. You make it
Thank
a
you.
great day, and I can't wait to see you at the next event, because I know you'll be there.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it, Melissa.
Take care.
Bye.